Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Coffee Shop series. I want to thank you for being patient with me as I rolled this out. It's something that definitely started as a passion project for me, and I wanted to do the personal stories of the individuals I sat down with. I wanted to do them justice, and I learned so much that it's impossible for me to truly depict their stories and their life lessons through, a 5 minute 8 minute video or to sit down and write it. I am not that talented of a writer. I would have completely messed it up if I did it that way. But I'm just wanting to share with you life lessons that they shared with me, and then recap it with things that I learned during that experience. So the first person I sat down to interview is my dear friend Matt. I'd known him for over 20 years. We both grew up in the same small town of Brentwood. And I wanted to ask him out because he is so different than me. Growing up, we weren't in the same circles. Matt wasn't the jock like I was. Honestly, I don't really know where Matt hung out or what his group was, but I do know that whenever we were together, I always had a lot of fun with him. And then life, happens. We're in our 30s now, so when I was walking to the old co-op about a year and a half ago and I looked up randomly from my phone, I looked across the street at Temple. I saw him there. I was so excited, and the last year and a half, I've gotten to know him so much more than I had in the, early or in the last 20 years or so. And he's definitely a safe space for me to be able to be creative, and there's no judgment. So if I ever messed up on anything or sounded silly, he doesn't care. So I wanted to get to know him better, though I thought I knew him well. I realized I didn't know him as well as I had thought that I did. He and I, like I said, couldn't be any more different. Though we grew up in the same town, our upbringings and our family lives were exactly opposite. Mine looked like everyone else's. I had the track home. My dad worked. My mom stayed at home and raised us kids and got us to all of our band, theater, sporting events, all by herself. Always had a meal on the table. My dad always came home, right? We had 2 cars and I had 2 siblings. So that was everything that everyone else in the neighborhood had, but not Matt. And I didn't know this at the time, but his parents were never married. He grew up and lived in abandoned cars or abandoned houses and in cars, and lived in houses without running water. Now, I didn't know that at the time, and I knew that Matt had a different life than I did, but I didn't know what that meant until I sat down with him for a cup of coffee. And he was very honest with me, and I can't even imagine what it would be like if my parents weren't married, because that's my normal. That's what I had always known. But Matt, he's like, I don't know what that's like. And that, I think, gives people really interesting perspectives on love, on marriage, and kind of what they want out of life. Yeah, kind of having some epiphanies in my own mind right now, but I'll save those for later. So talking with Matt, he had said that love can conquer anything and everything. Though it is cliche, it is so true. And the love that he was talking about was the love that his dad had for him. His dad never really thought that he would be a dad, and then when Matt came, his whole life changed, and he dedicated his life to providing Matt everything that he possibly could and loving him. Now, Matt didn't have the stable roof over your head. There were some drugs surrounding his family, and he had said that the love of his father made those bad things not so bad. That the things that he was surrounded with could have crippled even the strongest of adults, but it was his father who loved him so much that made him feel safe. It made him feel like everything was okay. So when his dad died 9 days before he went off to college, you could only imagine how rough that was and how that shook the foundation of everything he thought he knew. He had said that once his dad passed away, he went off to college and he was a shell of a human. For a year, he just stared at walls and he didn't know if he was alive, awake or dreaming, because reality had shifted. All of the laws of physics were different for him. And I can't imagine having to go through that. And so he had mentioned that there were times where he didn't think he could get through it, but he did. And I think it's because his dad's always been with him. We literally just got off the phone with each other, and he was mentioning how his style is his dad's, how he feels like he's an extension of his father. And I think that that's so true, and I think his dad is always with him. And I think that if any of you guys have lost someone that you've loved so much, I've lost people so tragically and unexpectedly that they're always with you. Now, I haven't lost my father. He's still here. And so sitting down and talking with Matt, I learned that I love my dad so much more than I believe that I tell him. My dad has always been around, but it wasn't until I was going through my divorce that my relationship with my father got stronger than strong. If I didn't have him at that time, I don't know where I would be right now. So knowing that Matt has been navigating his adulthood all by himself breaks my heart, but also makes me respect him so much because he's doing it. Because he is living his life creatively. He always goes into every situation with an open heart and willing to meet and talk to new people and just connect. And I think that that is a beautiful thing. I'm sorry, I'm just losing it over here. But I also realized that had Matt not gotten through, sometimes people don't, but selfishly, I realized that if at that time in Matt's life, if he had given up, I would have lost out on one of my best friends. So I thank you, Matt, for being strong and for being an example to me and everyone that you meet of someone who doesn't take life for granted and someone who has experienced life and is willing to share those lessons with other people. My life is far richer for having you in it than when I didn't. So stay tuned for stories from other inspiring individuals that I had the honor and pleasure of meeting and sitting down and taking out to coffee. And if there is someone that you love, I encourage you to go out and tell them. Call them, tell them, because you never know if they will be here or not. So, have a good day, guys. Go out and be awesome.